I want to talk about racism in this country, and because of that, I need to start with a qualifier. There are racists in this country, and there are racist incidents, horrible incidents that the overwhelming majority of citizens in this country deplore. If you don't believe me, have a look at this incident at a Telstra shop in Sydney's southern suburbs last month.
Really? Oh yeah? Go back to China. Understand that? Your whole family's going to shut down immediately. And you are too, India.
That woman, Angela Whedon, was later charged over a similar rant at a woman on a train. We can't deny these events. We can only point out that they are rare and how we abhor them, and how the forbearance and stoicism of the victims in an attack like this tell us more about the character of our nation than does the vitriol of the abuser. So there you go, it can and does happen. The point is, though, the scale and whether there is any nation in the world that has a more enviable record on multiculturalism. Is there a country in the world that exhibits less racism than Australia in either official policies or lived experience? I think not. But now our universities are set to suffer from claims of racism directed at Australia. I brought you the breaking news last night about an official education ministry warning from China telling students to reconsider their intention to study in Australia because of COVID-19 risks and because of anti-Asian racism in Australia. Now, this is a shocker. It's not based on reality. It's clearly another attempt by Beijing to punish Australia for standing up to it over the source of the pandemic and other issues. Still, our university sector is now on the defensive.
Do you think there has been a rise in racism against Chinese students since the beginning of the pandemic?
We've certainly seen no evidence of that, and we have specifically sought advice from the Chinese embassy here in Canberra.
Now, the point I want to make is that the universities themselves have helped to make this attack from China possible. The unis have certainly made themselves overly reliant on Chinese students and the cash stream they represent. But at the same time, our unis have been obsessed with identity politics and racism, routinely painting a bleak picture of Australia's record. Just last month, Susan Carlin from Monash University wrote about how racism and recessions go together, and we had to prepare to stop a racism spike. Her article said in part that there's an historical precedent for a recession racism link in Australia, and that, coupled with our current struggles with race issues, means we are primed for strife. It sometimes seems like academics live in a totally different world, doesn't it? And last year, the Australian National University and Western Sydney University combined for a study that talked up racism within our education sector. Indeed, issues of race and identity politics run right through our university system. And in this article last year, Bella Debrera from the Institute of Public Affairs outlined her study showing an enormous amount of university spending and research focused on looking for and discussing racism. Debrera has spoken about these preoccupations for our tertiary education sector a number of times with me and others on this station.
But when you go and you read the course descriptions and the subject titles, there's always a word slipped in there. There's always gender, there's always race, there's always this idea of identity. But it's so common, even in ancient history.
Yep, there's no doubt the universities have been unfairly singled out by China for an attack on their business model based on false and exaggerated claims about racism. But the universities foolishly have played right into China's hands and provided plenty of ammunition for Beijing.